What makes an inspired woman? We are brilliant, funny, compassionate, generous, fearless, supportive, bold, outstanding leaders, and super influential. That's what makes us inspired women. Come join us. Welcome to Inspired Women Amazing Lives podcast, where we seek to inspire women so that they will know it's not where you start in the journey, but actually the journey itself and where you land that really, really matters. And so we have inspiring women on our show that shows you just that. And that's what I have today. I have with me Miss Laura Click. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, great to be here, Kimberly.
Very nice to have you. And Laura is a writer, speaker, brand strategist, and entrepreneur. She is the founder of Blue Kite, which is a brand strategy shop in Nashville. And she's the host of Make It Brave podcast. Ooh, I can't wait to hear what that podcast is about.
Can't wait to talk about it. It's so fun.
Yes, really, really nice. Now, Laura, if you will, I always start with you sharing your story for us. So if you can share your story with what brought you to being this writer, speaker, brand strategist, and entrepreneur and founder of Blue Kite.
Well, it's a great question and a big question because I think I love how you intro and say it's not where you end up, it's the journey, and it's so true. And I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, in a lot of ways, I stumbled into it. I would not have guessed that I was going to be an entrepreneur. That was not something I set out to do. Though my mother would say she knew all along. She always told me I needed to go out on my own. You know, moms are always right. So a shout out to my mom because she called it. I didn't. But I grew up from a long line of entrepreneurs, so I think it's in my blood. But for me, I think there's a lot of different reasons why I am where I am. I think one of them is that I worked in a lot of different environments. I was in a for-profit marketing agency. Was my first job out of college. I went from there to working in a nonprofit. I've done state government. So I've done all of these different sectors, and none of them seem to really fit just right. And I think for me, the biggest thing was that I lacked the culture that I really was looking for in a workplace environment. So in a lot of ways, starting my own company was my way to create my own culture and create my own way of doing things. And so I think that that's a big reason why I am here. And I don't know if that fully answers the question, but if you ask why I'm an entrepreneur, I think that's really it, is I wanted to be able to chart my own course and find my own way of doing things instead of having to do what everyone else was telling me to do.
That's very nice. I love the fact, Laura, that you mentioned creating your own culture. Because, a lot of times we will get in these environments, like a corporate environment or something like that, and we can look at it and we can see the things that we don't particularly enjoy or the way things are run. And that's what leadership is about, Laura, is really just grabbing the bull by the horns, as my mom would say, and just really just creating your own environment. And that's what you've done. So kudos to you. I love that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think it's the idea of like, if you can't find it, build it. And so that's really the mindset I've had.
Nice. Very nice. Now, Laura, branding is really such a broad term. Can you tell us exactly what you specialize in with branding?
Sure. You're right. It is a big term and one that not everyone understands. And to be honest, I wish I could find a better term for it. I hate saying branding because not everyone, I think everyone's like, well, what does that mean exactly? And I'm like, great question. And I'm still trying to find a better way to describe it myself. So I focus on brand strategy. And really, I think if you were to boil it down, it's the heart and soul of your business. Why did you start? Who are you for? What are you about? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? It's kind of those deep questions that get to the core and heart of your business. That's what I help companies unlock, is discovering those things. And it's really interesting that I think a lot of times founders either forget that or they never really thought about those things. They just started doing the work, right? And so entrepreneurs, a lot of times, they maybe start consulting or they start doing some things on the side, or maybe you do it out of a need and you don't really think strategically about, well, who am I here to serve? Why did I start this in the first place? Like, what do I stand for and believe in? Those are the things that I help companies uncover. So brand strategy to me means your why and your core values, those things that you stand for and believe in. It also means your messaging. So we look at your strategy in terms of how do you communicate what you're about to the right people? So who are you trying to talk to? And then I'm not a designer, but I do partner and bring in designers to do the visual execution on branding. So most of the time when people think about branding, that's what they think of is a logo. And the logo is a part of it, but I would say it's the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a great graphic I saw once that we use sometimes as well, where it has the iceberg. So imagine like the Titanic is going towards the iceberg. There's a big block of ice under the water, and that's really what branding is. The tip of the iceberg that you can see above the water is the logo. That's the visual part, and that's the part people see. But you can't have a strong logo or a strong visual if you don't have all of the stuff underneath and really strategically thinking about who are you talking to? What is your message? What are you trying to say? What is the change you're trying to create in the world? So that's really what I do. My team does is really focus on those elements. And then we partner with our clients to help communicate in an ongoing way. So we do a lot of content marketing and social media as well to help kind of live out the brand once the strategy and the logo is developed.
Very nice. I love that because Laura, that's what my message is for women. I mean, I could bless this and we could end this because you just
we're done.
You're done.
The shortest interview ever.
Yes, Laura, because you just totally after my heart, you nailed that. Just being able to talk about I saw myself in all of that. Talking about it, and there are ways that I still need to redefine my brand because as I've moved along, even when I defined it the first time, I moved along and then now I'm pivoting and things are changing and I need to redefine that. And because I'm trying to make the biggest impact in the world that I can, I really need to do that. And so when you talked about just starting out, and I think a lot of business owners, my listeners will agree, start out at that point where you're just trying to throw stuff on the wall and see if it sticks.
Right. Yes. We've all been there.
Yes.
We've all been there.
Yes. But then it comes to a place, Laura, that you talked about that you got to draw a line in the sand and kind of say, all right, what am I trying to say? What does my messaging stand for? What do I stand for? What am I trying to communicate effectively to my audience? So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times the way you start out and you're talking about pivoting and needing to evolve your brand, to be honest, I'm doing the same thing with mine. So Blue Kite is undergoing a massive overhaul right now. And so about to roll out a new brand visual for Blue Kite. I mean, I started Blue Kite almost 10 years ago. And so a lot's changed both from what I do, what we do, and from who we serve, and even just from a design standpoint, design styles have changed in 10 years. So there has to be an evolution. But I think that's to your point. A lot of times businesses start out and you just have to cobble together what you can do with what you have at the beginning. But there does need to be an evolution, or I think brands mature. So as you grow and as you mature as a company, your brand needs to grow and mature with it. So what worked when you started out and you didn't have much to your name or to your business and you're just getting it going, that's going to look a lot different than when you have a growing company. A lot of times we work with clients who have reached a point where, hey, we've survived on referrals and word of mouth all of this time, and now we're realizing we need to do more. And I think every business goes through that. You get to that point where it works for a good while. And then it's like, if we want to keep growing, if we want to still be here, we need to amp up our efforts a little bit to make a bigger impact.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I had a client, when you were talking, it reminded me of a client that I had. And, when I was coaching clients that way, I started out by coaching clients, helping them just get all the basics together with their business and get it started and get those first few clients. And then I would refer them out to people to other coaches that would help them grow it. And, I remember having this one client who she really didn't want to leave me. She wanted to continue to work with me. But one of the important questions she asked me, all right, I'm at this place where I'm making about $1,000 a month already. So how do I grow that? Just by getting more clients? I'm going to run out of space in a minute to be able to do that. And I said, no, that's why these other resources are so important, because they are able to help you understand how to scale your business, how to really systematize it, and be able to prioritize things in a way that makes it simpler for you to do more, maybe less of you and more of other things. So there's strategies that can help with that. And so it just reminded me of that when you talked about that, because a lot of times we don't realize, when we're starting out in business, that there are ways to do things on a larger scale to be able to really grow your business. And branding, I can attest to, is one of those things that have really, really helped. So.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's proof to that story. The things that work when you start isn't always going to be the stuff that's going to work down the road. And so that's where that evolution has to come to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the things you talked about quite a bit, Laura, was your story.
Mm.
Tell us why your story is so essential to your brand. Share more about that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I appreciate you asking that question, because I think we connect to stories. People connect most to stories, and it's what makes us human. And I think it's what makes people gravitate to a business. And so your story is unique to you. No one else has your story. I think that's what gets businesses in trouble, is when they try to mimic and copy the guy down the street. It's like, you don't want to be the guy down the street. Be you, or gal down the street, or whomever. Be wholly you, be fully you, because there are going to be people that are going to be attracted to that, to no one else, So it's not trying to be for everyone. It's trying to be for the right people. And I think stories are a great way to find those connecting points. When we hold those back, we're closing off opportunities for people to connect with us in a deeper way. So I think that's why stories really matter, and stories are what really help differentiate your brand. So you might sell a product that's just similar to another person, but your story could be the difference maker between you and that other guy or gal down the street. Or your service may be very similar to someone else's service, but your story and how you got there, or how you do your work, or why you started, might make someone go, man, I feel like I connect to you so much better because of your story, or because of your background, or how you started. I don't know about you, but I know I am connected to businesses and brands that operate that way. I even in my personal life, it's funny, I think we admire stories in other people, but it's hard to share them ourselves sometimes.
Yes.
And for me, on my personal life, one of the stories that I have started opening up about is that my husband and I struggled with infertility for years. And I had a lot of shame around that. And I didn't talk a lot about that. I wasn't very open about it. Certainly wasn't open about it online. And once I did finally decide to open up about that story and that struggle, I can't tell you how many people reached out to me privately to say, yeah, me too. And it was such a light bulb moment. And this is funny, for someone who's a marketer and a brand strategist and who believes in the power of stories, I was withholding an important part of mine. And now I have some really great connections with people who have that shared experience with me. I have a colleague who does similar work, and I know, even though we haven't had the opportunity to work together, we have this strong affinity for each other, because she and I have lived through some similar experiences, because I was brave enough to talk about that. So all that to say, not that you have to share all your deepest, darkest secrets, but by being brave enough to share your story and the things that matter to you, the things that have happened in your life, I think you create opportunities for people to connect and go, yeah, me too. And there's such solidarity when that happens. It's a beautiful thing. And so I think it just opens up opportunity for connection and growth and relationship and ultimately business. So that's very long way of saying that's why story matters.
No, that was great. That was perfect, Laura. I mean, and thank you for sharing that. You know, I had a story hidden inside of me. I just started sharing that story like a year ago. I didn't even share it with my family, really. My family didn't know the entire story. You know, this story of abuse that I went through, you know, with my ex-husband. And I didn't really share that story. And, you know, I'm just now being comfortable sharing that. But, you know, Laura, you are so right. There are people that are waiting to hear your story because they connect with you in a big way, and they may be stuck because of where they are with a similar story. And just being able to hear your story and seeing where you have come from to now where you are with your, as an entrepreneur, a speaker, a writer, you know, hey, you they're able to say, wow, if Laura can do it, I can do it too.
Right. I think we're all looking for, I think sharing your story kind of opens up, it's almost like a mirror. You're holding up a mirror for someone to say, hey, you're not alone. There are other people that are going through something similar to you. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's such a relief when you hear about other people. Not that you want other people to go through hard things, but when you hear stories that are similar to yours, you're like, oh, it's not just me. I'm not the only one, you know, but we think when we're in these dark places or in these hard times that we're the only one going through that. And it's a lie. And so I think the story is kind of a way of holding up a mirror and saying, look, there's someone else, like, it's not just you, there's someone else out there. So I'm a big advocate. It's hard to do. I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's easy to, you know, hide all of the hard, scary bits sometimes. But I think once you start opening up a little bit, you'll see kind of the magic that comes from doing so.
I agree. Totally agree. So Laura, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And when Laura comes back, she will share more about her own personal brand story. We'll be right back. Are you a podcaster with lots of episodes and content, but have not been putting it to good use? Don't you know that repurposing your content gives you more visibility? And no, it doesn't have to be time consuming. I've got you. Hey, Kimberly Wiggins here with Inspired Women Amazing Lives. Listen, you have what it takes to do this, but it is just time to let more people hear your message. Repurposing your content can surely get you there. Using my repurposing system for your podcast episodes helps you to show up everywhere and be heard in a much greater way so that your message can add value to the lives of others. Isn't that what you really want? Check out From Podcasting to Profit right now at inspiredwomenamazinglives.com. Let's shift things for your life and business so you can repurpose your amazing content that impacts your audience. Use the code PROFIT for $200 off From Podcasting to Profit. Okay, we're back. And Laura, I know you talked a little bit about it before we went on break, but if you will, what is your brand story? What is the story behind the brand Blue Kite?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, that's something I still even need to hone in on and work on a bit. I'm in that evolution phase too.
Yeah.
But I started Blue Kite almost 10 years ago. It was a side hustle for me. And I started it because I believed there was a better way to do business and a better way to communicate with people. And in the early stages, it was very heavily focused on social media. So 10 years ago was kind of in the early days, if you can believe, of social media. And so I did a lot of consulting on helping companies communicate better using those tools. I think it was a great, and still is a great way to connect with people. But Blue Kite really is about helping brands tell their story better, because I do believe stories are what sell. And so it's creating stories that connect with people so that you can sell more of your product or service. I mean, that's essentially the story there. Or what we do. That's not our story. That's what we do. But that's really why I'm in business, is to help people and businesses who are doing impactful work reach more people, to tell their stories better. What breaks my heart is when I see companies or organizations doing incredible work, but they just don't know how to tell people about it in a way that captures attention. I think we start to kind of glaze over and with these mission statements that are full of words that don't mean anything, or these elevator pitches that just, they sound like a bunch of jargon. And it's like, people don't connect with any of that.
No.
So it's like trying to unlock the magic that lies within your organization. We all have it. We all have great stories. We all have something to tell, but I think sometimes we're really blind to it, which is why it's even hard for me, as you're asking me that question. Even I need help, because it's hard for me to sometimes see the magic in the work that we do, because I'm blind to it. So I have a friend and colleague who, I steal this from him all the time, but he said, you can't read the label of the jar you're in. And I think that's so smart, because you're in the size. So imagine you're a jar of jelly. You don't know what you are. You're in the jar. Like, you need the label. You need someone to read the label for you and say, hey, this is what you're made of. This is what's your special sauce. This is your secret ingredient. And I think sometimes we need someone or people to help us discover our secret sauce. We all have it. It's just a matter of identifying it and claiming it and promoting it. So I guess if you were to say, all right, my story is really to help other people find their secret sauce.
I love that. Oh my gosh, you're right. Every time I have conversation with just random people, they will say, oh, you're good at that. Even just my podcasting, I will hear people say that. They will tell me that all the time. Oh, you did such a great job with the interview. You're good at that. I can't see it. Like you say, you're in the jar. So
right.
You just can't see it. And
right.
My mom would say, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And I think what you said, though, is a really important point. And this is something that has been given to me as advice, and I have shared it with many, many people as well, is that paying attention to those compliments. So people who are telling you that you're really good at podcasting, that should be a real clue as to what your secret sauce is, or what some of your, magical ingredients are, And so I think if we think about what are the things that people compliment us the most on, what do we get the most kind of attention for, if you will, that offers some clues into maybe the things that you need to pay more attention to, whether it's in your branding or your messaging or your marketing or even your services. Sometimes I think the things that may become the easiest and most natural to us and things we often dismiss are the things that our clients and customers tend to value most. And so if we were to look at those things and maybe give them a little bit more attention, it'd be interesting to see how that shifts and how that may even attract more of the right kind of people.
Yeah, Laura, that's really funny. And I'll tell you a quick story about that with myself. I'm an empowerment coach, but I fell in love with this podcasting thing. I've been doing it almost 2 years and I still fell in love with it. And people were just beating me over the head saying, I don't know why you're not teaching other people how to do their podcasts, because you're so good at it and you so love it and you've always got good strategy. And we talked about this. People would just keep telling me that for like almost a year before.
Like they're flashing a sign, like you're looking for a sign. This is your sign.
But my problem was, Laura, I didn't want to give up empowerment coaching because I felt, and then one day, I'd gotten a new coach And she hit me over the head and she said, "What are you talking about? Giving up empowerment coaching? That is empowerment. Podcasting is. It's getting women to really share their message in a bigger way, to figure out what they
Yeah.
really, really stand for, stand on that thing and really blow it out there with podcasting." And the light bulb came on and it was like, oh. But it's like, yeah, sometimes you want to hold on to the thing and you're looking in this little lens and you're not really seeing the possibilities in the big picture.
Well, we get stuck in our lane or we have blinders on. And so we think like this is what we're supposed to be doing. And so it is really, I mean, I get stuck in that same thing. And so I think that's where I'm so glad that you're kind of stepping into that, because I think when we get that kind of feedback, that means that people are seeing the magic and what you have to offer there. And so if people are telling you that, that means people want it. So like make that, make it happen. And I think, but it's easy to ignore because it's like, well, maybe it's new, it's scary, it's different. I've always done things this way, and especially when you're a business owner or entrepreneur, it's really easy to get locked into, well, I know how to make money this way. Over here is how I normally make money. I don't know how to make money over here. I mean, I even struggle with that. And so it is really hard, but you don't have to go whole hog. You can just dip your toe in that water and just try it. And so I think that it's interesting when I having worked for myself for so long, you can get into a rut as an entrepreneur. You can get as a business owner, whatever it might be. And I think sometimes we have to kind of remember we started by experimenting a lot, and then you kind of find something that works, and maybe you get stuck in that lane, stuck in that rut. And then you have to realize, hey, it's okay to keep experimenting. Like that is one of the things in the last few years for me. It's like, hey, wait a minute, just because you have been doing this for a while doesn't mean you have to stop experimenting and trying new things and looking for different avenues. And so I think that, at least for me, I need that reminder sometimes.
Right. And I think you're right. I think we want to get comfortable, we want to get comfortable in that spot where we're not experimenting. But I think you're so right. The growth happens when we remember that it's okay to keep experimenting, and we do. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Laura, I know it's hard to get people to share a lot of times. So how do you get people to share their story? How do you get it out of them? I remember when I would coach people around their messaging, you talked about that mission statement or that elevator pitch that just had a lot of words in it. They always gave me that, and I would be like, say more, tell me more, go deeper, tell me more. And people are looking at me like, what else can I say? I've said it all.
Right. Great question. So when I work with clients, we do what I call a brand discovery session, and it's usually a half a day. We spend a good 3 or 4 hours together. Wow. For me to dig out some of that very stuff. And so I have a journalism degree, so that was where my kind of background comes from. So I joke that I'm going to interrogate you. I'm going to ask you so many questions that you're going to want to hit me over the head with the frying pan or something, get me out of here. But I ask a lot of questions, and I have to come at it from a lot of different angles sometimes, because you're right. Sometimes people aren't real sure what that means. And so I don't ask the question of what your story is. Things about, why did you start? What was it that you didn't like about the thing that you were doing? That I have a client that I'm working with now. It's a gym for women, and it's a social enterprise. So there was a nonprofit first, and then they built a for-profit side that supports the nonprofit. But it's a for women only gym. And so it was, why did you start that gym? Like, what was the reason? What did you not like about how other gyms were operating? And so she was able to start telling me some of those things. Another question I really love is like, what change do you hope to see in the world? I mean, most of the time entrepreneurs create a business because they want to make change. There's something that they don't like, or maybe it's simply they just want to help people. But what do you want to help people do? And why does that matter to you? Why is the thing that you're doing important? Why do you care about it so much? Or on the converse side, like let's talk about all the things that are wrong with the fitness industry, or, whatever it might be. And so I think it's just asking a lot of those questions gets down to it. I ask a lot about, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? Which I kind of hinted at a little bit earlier. I think some of those things kind of get to the heart of what matters most to us, So it's a lot of those kinds of things. Another big key piece of building stories and messaging, really, for me, is we do customer research. So we do surveys to our clients. So let's talk about this fitness company. We sent out a survey to all of their clients to get feedback. And we ask questions like, what do you value most about this company? And so asking those kind of questions, sometimes we need to hear it from the people we serve. They're able to see things that, back to that whole jar analogy, that sometimes our clients and customers see things that we don't. So what do they value most about working with us? What do they value most about our brand? And I think sometimes we can see clues there in the story. But, at the end of the day, I think really talking to the founder or the person who started the business is where most of the stories lie. So if you are the person who started the company, your founder's story, the story of the why you started this in the first place, is probably one of the more important ones. I think the story about your values and what you believe in, like that really matters. I'm not done with it, but I'm stealing some of those things from a book called Stories That Stick. I think it's Kendra Scott is the author of that.
Read that, I think.
And those are two of the stories I think she mentions as founder story and value story. I'm trying to remember what the others are. Not done with that book yet, but I do think those are some of the most important ones. That's why when we do those brand strategy, brand discovery sessions, it's always with the person, if possible, with the person who founded the company, because they're always going to have that historical knowledge, that information that other people in the company aren't going to have. So if you are the founder, those stories. If you're not the founder, you need to go find that person and say, okay, tell me back when you started this. Why did you do that? Why did you do this? What was it that you wanted to do? And I think that it's just asking some of those questions can help get to the heart of it.
That's very, very nice. I love that. I'm keeping that in mind. I'd like to just do that brand discovery call.
Yeah.
Just so it would force me to dig deeper,
Yeah, sure.
with my own brand, just to be able to talk about those things. Because you know what? I'm a firm believer, Laura, that there is no separation really between who you are in your regular life and who you are in business. If there is, then something to me is fake there. You hold the same values across those things. And that's what matters. Your ethics, your values, what do you stand for? That matters across life and business the same. So, yeah.
That's a really great point. And I love that because you're right. If you don't believe in those things personally, your business can't believe in those things. And, I've written some things about this, but I think businesses are often built in the image of the founder, right? So I think it's like, so if the founder, or the person who started the company believes these things and lives their life this way, the business is really going to be built in that same manner, because there's going to be a mismatch if you try and force values that really aren't consistent with the founder's values and beliefs. It's just not. It's going to be really difficult. But you're right. I mean, if they don't align, then there's a problem somewhere. You have to figure out where it is. It makes me think of when we talk about core values a lot. I mean, a lot of businesses have them, but they're not very strong or well-defined. And it makes me think of Enron as a great classic example that's used quite often. I don't remember all of them, but I remember integrity was one of their values. And so it was probably, I think it was like integrity and excellence, and it's
Yeah.
these very kind of generic loaded words that really don't hold a lot of meaning. And clearly those weren't values for that company because they did not operate in a manner of integrity, And so, I think that's where when we work with clients, we often encourage, let's not use those big loaded words. We often use phrases that actually mean something, right? So like, this is how we operate. This is how we, to me, values are how you show up on a day-to-day basis, like
Right.
what matters to you. And so instead of saying integrity, one that we've used for ourselves and we've used with other clients is do the right thing. Like, to me, that's an easier way to kind of get at the same thing as integrity in a much more communicable way and a much easier way for people to understand and also implement. Okay, I know what it means to do the right thing. Integrity just kind of feels like this loaded word, and what it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So trying to kind of break that down and say, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
Right. It reminds me of, when you said that, it reminded me of something I said to a friend of mine, that, I value my friendships, but what I value most about my friendships is my ability to be honest and for them to be honest with me and to trust me and for me to trust them. And so an incident happened, a friend of mine, and he lied. He outright lied to me. And when I found out that he outright lied to me, I said, what didn't you understand when I said that, I value these friendships, but they consist of honesty and trust? He said, oh, people say that all the time. And so to your point, it's like, I said it, but he didn't believe it because people say
everybody says it. That's really sad though, isn't it? I mean, I think integrity is a beautiful word. I think honesty is a beautiful word, and they are very important, valuable things. But I think probably why no one believes them is because people like your friend or people like Enron have used them without meaning it. And so they've been watered down, and these wonderful things don't really mean what we thought they meant. At least we can't trust that they do. So I think that's why I often advocate for simpler phrases and words that kind of really get to the heart of like, well, what does honesty mean to you? And I even think honesty is one of those words that I think people can interpret that different ways. Is that being true to yourself? Does it mean speaking up when no one, like when it might be hard? Does honesty mean saying, like, it's kind of like women in particular, right? Like, so when someone says, does this make me look fat? Do you be honest in that moment or not?
Yes.
Like what are you supposed to do?
Yes.
So,
well, I didn't want to say, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
right.
Yes.
I'd much rather know. Please tell me, because I don't want to walk out looking like a buffoon. So like, tell me that it looks bad. And that's what real friends do.
Yes. That's what I totally agree. Yeah. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed that dialogue just now, really just talking about, the words we use really, and what your values are. And my values, Laura, are very important to me. I don't like people compromising them. I don't like being around people who wants to compromise them. My values are very, very important to me. And so, yeah. I love that. So now, you mentioned the fact that when you work with clients, you've got that half-day brand discovery call, which I absolutely love. And what are some of the other ways that you work with clients? Are you just working with big companies, or one-on-one with small companies like myself that don't really have any employees? I'm just a woman entrepreneur. Or how do you work with clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's evolving. And especially right now in the world of coronavirus, I mean, it's a totally different ball game. And so we're, evolving too. And so it's a little bit all over the map. Traditionally, I have worked with larger companies. I mean, it started out with smaller businesses, and then over time it's grown. That's kind of shifting somewhat again. My focus and my target really is, I like to work with social businesses, or I say mission-minded businesses. So companies that really have a strong mission of what they want to accomplish in the world are strong. And that doesn't mean you're a nonprofit. It doesn't mean you have to be a social business or a social enterprise. I like working in those realms, but you can be a for-profit business that really cares about affecting change. And those are the kinds of people and companies I like to work with. But right now in the world of coronavirus, so yes, I mean, I just took on a new client right now that is a one-person entrepreneur, yet he has for his personal brand, but he has multiple companies. So it's an evolving thing, Kimberly, to be completely honest. And so working with a little bit all over the place is mostly about having the right fit with people. I always say from day one I started Blue Kite, if nothing else, this is one thing that has never changed. I say I work with people I enjoy and businesses I believe in. So if I don't enjoy you, like, it's not going to be a good relationship, so I will say no. Or if it's not a business that I can be behind personally, I know that I won't do a good job creating marketing for you, because if I don't, an example would be cigarettes. Like, I don't believe in smoking, so like I could not get behind your work. I just won't work with that kind of company. And there's been all sorts of companies that have reached out that I've said, no, thank you. I mean, I appreciate the interest, but I can't get behind the work that you do. Not that it's bad, but it's just personally not something that I align with. And that matters to me, because if I believe in you and your work, then my effort is going to be that much stronger. So you asked what kind of companies was there? I think you wanted to know what other kind of work too. Was that the question?
Yeah, you talked about the brand discovery call.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned some. I saw on your website too some content management, some social media. What are some of the other kinds of work? Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Over the years, we've tightened up to focus more exclusively on branding. So I don't take on many clients unless we've done some brand strategy or some strategic work at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Without strategy, like, you can't call up Blue Kite and say, hey, can you build me a website? Or, hey, can you run some social media for me? No, because we don't do it without doing some strategy work first. I believe that that's so important. And if you're not willing to invest in strategy, we're not here to just do social media for you or write a blog. However, once we've worked with you to build a brand strategy or a marketing strategy, then we can help you on the execution piece. So we do work with clients kind of as an outsourced marketing department, primarily in the world of content development. So that blogging would be a great example of that. And we do some social media work as well. So those are probably the primary avenues of how we execute. It's interesting because branding kind of bleeds into a lot of different things. And so we really start with the strategy piece. And so sometimes that means if we're overhauling your brand, we'll also redevelop your website as well. So we'll build you a new website to give you a good foundation there. That often comes as part of it. We don't, again, you can't call Blue Kite and say, hey, I need a new website. We don't do that, but we will execute on if we've helped you kind of rebuild your brand or establish your brand from the ground up. A very natural executional piece out of that is a website. So it really depends on the client. We are more geared toward having a handful of clients and working really deeply within those instead of having a big, large group of clients and we're doing a lot of little bits of things for a lot of different people. It's more about being an in-depth partner for a handful of select partnerships.
I love it. I love it. And audience, I could tell you, I'm sitting here on camera with Laura, but I can feel her heart around everything that she's talking about. And I love that. I just absolutely love that. And
well, thank you.
What makes the difference is, say I'm looking for somebody to work with me on my content and someone recommends someone and I talk to them about it. A lot of times people will start with, what are you looking to get done? And they always start with that without knowing anything about my company or what I stand for or what my brand is or what I'm trying to communicate. Just what are you looking to get done? And so those are normally the people that, I end up, I'll go through the motions and then for a little bit, and then I'll be like, look, I can kind of already tell, because I can't tell other people how to run their company, but I can already tell this is not going to be a good fit, really. So I don't want to waste your time, because if you can't know enough about me, or you can't develop a strategy to help build that portion of my business up before you just layer it on with all this content, then you're not really helping me.
No, you're just
Really.
doing a bunch of stuff. Like, I hate stuff. Like, we're not just doing stuff. Like, I'm not wasting my time. Like, I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting your time, and I'm not wasting people's money either. Like, I think so often that people just want to be able to check boxes.
Yes.
Like, hey, I just want to do some social media, or I just want to do some blogging, or I just want to, whatever it might be, video, podcast, whatever. We want to do some things because somebody down the street is doing it, and we feel like we need to do it too.
That's
well,
right.
My question always is why? Why do you want to do it? What do you hope to accomplish? Where are you going with this? Well, who are you trying to reach? Like, if you can't answer those questions, don't do it. Don't do any of those things without figuring that out first.
I totally agree. That's what I do with my podcast, Discovery Calls. We talk about the why first. If your why is just that you want to, I want to get my business out there more, that's the wrong why. No, we're not doing it for that why. You got to go find somebody else. Yeah. That's the wrong why.
What is the right why? Now I'm curious. I'm going to start interviewing you. This is where I have to shut my mouth, but I'm like, what is the right why? What is the right why there?
You really said it, Laura. You've got to have a mission. You've got to have a drive. You've got to have a purpose behind doing this. What are you trying to impact by doing this? Your business is going to grow as a byproduct anyway. But what is, and at the end of the day, just wanting to increase your business will not sustain you. Because when you've increased your business 100-fold, then what?
It's a great point. I mean, it's kind of the same reason why, if you're a fan of Simon Sinek, and that's where like the power of why, comes from. Oh, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, but your why can't be more money. It's just never going to work. So that's really interesting that you said that, but you're right. I mean, I guess so the same goes for podcasting or the why for your business. If the why is just money, it
won't work.
It won't work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Oh, I am so loving you, Laura.
I'm loving you, Kimberly. This is so fun. I wish I'm like giving you a virtual hug. Like
yes.
We're social distancing, hugging right now.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you have a podcast.
I do.
Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah. My podcast is called Make It Brave. And now you're going to see like, what is your why? What is your why from your podcast? But my why for the podcast is I believe bravery couldn't change the world. If we were all a little bit braver, I believe that the world would be a better place. And I feel like a Pollyanna kind of saying that, like, let's make the world a better place. But I do believe that bravery can make a huge difference in the way we show up in our lives and our work. And really, I built the podcast for a similar audience to yours. I say it's for entrepreneurs, creatives, innovators, and leaders who want to live a braver life. And so that's really who I talk to as well. So people who have done brave things. So a lot of entrepreneurs have been on my show. But I've also talked to people who have overcome addiction or have been in abusive relationships. Or it's interesting, a lot of the people I've talked to have had many instances of bravery. In fact, like I've had recently a gentleman on the show who is an entrepreneur and a recovering addict. Wow. I've had multiple people on the show in that regard. Actually, I've had people who, another woman who was an entrepreneur and has overcome addiction and has had an abusive marriage. I mean, like people, there's some pretty extraordinary people that have been on the show and have been brave either through I call it bravery of circumstance or bravery of choice. Bravery of choice are people like entrepreneurs who decide to do something hard. They're scared, maybe something difficult, but they're going to go ahead and do it anyway, and push through that fear. But then there's the bravery of circumstance too. There was a gentleman on the show who his son has spina bifida, and he built a mobility device for his son to be able to crawl better, because I call that bravery of circumstance. Like, he had this, situation kind of thrust upon him. He didn't ask for this, but he found a way to make the best of it. And to me, I think that is being brave. I think that means showing up and doing the hard thing and making the best of the hand you've been dealt. So, so my show is half interviews, and then I also do some short solo shows, and talking about my journey to being braver myself. It's funny because I had a podcast several years ago with a friend and a co-host, and we had a marketing podcast. And ever since we quit doing that, I have had the itch to want to get back into podcasting, probably for a couple of years, and just kind of let it go. You probably talk to people all the time in this regard. Like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I thought I was going to start a branding show. But as I started to think of a name for the show, I kept coming up with names that were duds or that had already been used. And I just couldn't land on something. And it wasn't until I think had this idea of like brave brands. Let's talk about brands that are brave. And I really loved that word brave. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, what if I don't want to just talk about branding? What if I want to talk about bravery? And it kind of opened up this whole new mindset for me. And in a lot of ways, the podcast is just a huge experiment in helping me be braver and helping me do some things that are scary and hard. And so I'm learning and trying to experiment and do things that scare me. And I'm hoping that through me doing that and sharing my story and what I'm learning, and then sharing the story of other people, that we can all find ways to live a little bit braver.
I absolutely love that. Make it brave. I'm listening. Yes, I love that because, yeah, I mean, your podcast doesn't necessarily have to center around your business. And your podcast definitely has a mission to it, and I love it. I love that why, because you're highlighting people who are they are taking the circumstances they're dealt with, and they are actually creating their own solutions. And I love it.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I love, like, in some ways it's just and you probably feel this way too, getting to interview people that you just, it's a way for me to learn too. And so I love getting to interview these people because I feel like I gain so much from that. And so if nothing else, I feel like there's value in doing the podcast because I am getting to meet extraordinary people and learn from them. And I couldn't ask for anything else.
Absolutely. Very nice. Audience, Laura has really blessed us today with so much information. And you can find her at flybluekite.com. Why the name Blue Kite, Laura?
Great question. And I wish I had a wonderful answer. Maybe I'll just call it divine intervention or my mother's influence. When I was trying to find a name for my company 10 years ago, and I was really struggling. It's kind of, I would liken it to maybe naming a kid, but that was actually easier. Naming my son was easier than naming my business, to be honest. And I went through all sorts of names, and I could do this for other people. It's just really hard to do it for yourself. And so my mom had mentioned the idea of a kite, and I dismissed it. And then I'll never forget one morning I was doodling, and I just one day doodled a kite and wrote next to it, Blue Kite Marketing, helping business take flight. And it was one of those kind of like lightning bolt moments, perhaps. And I don't think that comes very often, but that was one of them. And I thought, I put my pen down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's it. And so I couldn't tell you why, other than I believe that we flew kites a lot as a kid. I grew up on a farm. And so I think there's just something really freeing about, if you think about flying a kite, there's this real freeing feeling about it. And so the image of a kite. And I think every time I tell people the name of my company, you can almost see the smile on their face. It's a very positive and uplifting brand name. And that's the effect I hope to have on people, but also how I want to impact their businesses. So my hope is to help them take flight, to reach new heights, to soar, to, gosh, now all of a sudden I'm reciting my son's book in my head. There's a book he has. It's like to soar, to fly, to be free. And I'm like, yes, all of those things. Like that's what I want to help businesses do. I want them to reach new heights. And so, that's the imagery. That's the feeling. I think Blue Kite gives people a feeling, and that is the effect I want to have on people. I want to help you feel something. And I want you to feel that I want you to be successful. I want you to reach new heights. And that's what the brand is really about.
I love it. That is the feeling that I got when I looked at everything and I said, oh, I like that. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I got that feeling. So you're dead on with that one. And you can also find Laura on her business page. She has a Facebook group, Make It Brave. I love it. I've got to check that group out. I'm going to join. And you can find her on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I will put all of her information on the show notes. You can find her there. And Laura, so you grew up on a farm. Tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah. I think people look at me and they're really shocked. I don't know what people expect when they hear that someone grew up on a farm. I don't know if I should be wearing overalls or something all the time, but I think maybe it's just the way I carry myself. I'm not sure. But yes, I grew up on a family farm. My parents are farmers, my grandparents on both sides, and their parents. Like, I come from a very long line of Midwestern farmers. So yeah, I grew up in central Missouri, an hour east of Kansas City, in a tiny town of 300 people. We didn't live in town. We lived out on the farm, and there are definitely more cows than people where I grew up. So, it's funny. I often joke that I feel like I was an alien. Like, I don't know how I arrived at being in the family that I was in, because I felt so different. My whole family, my sisters all are nearby where my parents live, and I couldn't wait to get out and go somewhere else. Like, I felt very, constrained there, but I do value growing up on the farm, and I do love getting to go back to visit my parents. And I think I learned a lot of really valuable lessons about hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of work and a lot of things that make people, they're surprised at some of the things I had to do as a kid on the farm, but it definitely made me not shy away from hard work. And I know how to do that and roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. So, I don't know. I could tell you all sorts of stories, but yes, I did grow up on a farm with, I have 3 younger sisters. So, much to my dad's chagrin, he had 4 girls. So we were not much wonderful help on the farm probably, but we did help. So, not like, if he had some boys, maybe they would have been a little bit more valuable to him and doing some farm work, but we got out there and we did our best.
Nice. Laura, we have a very similar story. And so that was very, very nice.
Really?
Yes, I grew up on a little farm in South Carolina. Bunch of
Oh my goodness.
and but you don't look like a farm girl. That's why people are so shocked. And I felt the same way as you did. I was like, I can't wait to get out of here. And
Yep.
So, yeah. So
Yep.
I feel you.
Everybody knows your business before you know your business, and it's like everyone knows your parents and your grandparents, and and it's like I want to go somewhere and not be known, was that kind of like the desire I had, and like just be able to create my own way and not have expectations on me. And so going off to college was just a huge blessing because I was excited to kind of pave my own way. So that's really funny. Now I need to know, what kind of farm did you have? What kind of farm did you grow up on?
It wasn't probably as big a farm as yours was. We didn't have cows, but we had like a lot of pigs, and we had horses, and just a lot of crops. And so we worked in the smaller crop fields. Like, we picked cucumbers and beans, all that other stuff. It was like, yes. So,
Yes.
yeah.
We had pigs also. My parents don't have cows anymore, but they have pigs. So I've had to do a lot of work with pigs. I do not like working with pigs. I don't know if you had to do pig work, but the pig work was terrible. Um, but yeah, I make people squeamish when I say, yes, I had to vaccinate and castrate pigs. So like I had to do a lot of unsavory things that people kind of get squeamish about. But here's one for you. We had crops too. I say this and people never know what it means. Did you ever have to walk beans? Do you know what I
Yes.
mean by,
Yes.
you know about walking beans?
Walking beans. Yes. And Laura, did the pigs did the pigs ever escape and you have to try to put them back in?
We did not have escaped pigs, but we had escaped cows. And so, yes, we had to get the cows back in. I, I have lots of stories, but yeah, I definitely remember one time we were moving cows. We had to move cows from like one pasture to another. And, being like a 10-year-old girl and you're standing there and it's like stand in the gap and don't let the cows get through. But when they're all coming at you and you're this big and the cows are like this big, I screamed and like let them go. I was not a great I was not a great farmhand by any stretch. So
Me either. I feel you.
ugh,
Great stories.
yep.
Great stories. Now, one of your favorite motivational quotes was, "Kites rise highest against the wind, not with it," by Winston Churchill. Why is that your greatest? Why do you like that quote?
Mm. Yeah, I think it reminds me that a couple of things. I think sometimes we are molded and shaped by challenge. And so if we take the easy way, we're not going to kind of rise to the occasion. It's when we face challenge, so that's where I take the analogy of, right, going into the wind. You have to be willing to go into the challenge. And also I think in some ways kind of correlating it to branding work, it's being willing to kind of go against the grain, go against what the competition is doing, kind of going against the status quo. And so I think you see people and businesses who really excel, they have the audacity to go a different way. And so I think it's a good reminder to not that challenges can shape us, but also don't follow the crowd. A lot can be achieved by forging your own way.
Nice. I love that. I hope in your changing of some things with your business, you do not get rid of that kite uh, branding, because I like that.
Yes. Yes. No, the kite stays. The kite is not going anywhere. It will still be Blue Kite, just a more fresher and modern version of it is all.
Good, good. I love it. Now, some of the books you talked about liking, The War of Art, ooh, that was one of my favorite books. It reminded me that I need to read that again.
I need to read it again too. I listened to an audiobook. So Stephen Pressfield actually narrated his audiobook, and man, I need to get the physical book so I can mark it up. I think I would highlight the whole darn thing, to be honest, but it was so good.
Mine was highlighted. It's in storage right now, but I'm going to buy another copy. I'm not going to dig around in storage, but I'm going to buy another copy of it. And I think it was very highlighted. I mean, it was like everything he was saying, it was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. So
Yes, for sure. Honestly, I listened to that book right before I started Make It Brave. And so listening to that book was a real catalyst for me starting the podcast. It kind of gave me the courage to say, hey, just do it. Just do it. And one of the things he talks about in that book was fear. And
yes.
we rationalize things, and that is fear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like he had gotten in my brain. I'm like,
Yes.
I totally do that. And so it was amazing to me to think that we sometimes think that we're being rational when the rationalization is just fear. I'm like, oh man, that is so true. So I have to quit rationalizing my way out of good ideas.
I do it all the time. I will call up my coach and rationalize a idea, and she's like, breathe, stop, you're just scared.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We just got to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make the art.
Yes, make the art. I love it. Laura, it was so great having you here today. I feel like you're a kindred spirit. Yes.
Likewise, this is fun. I feel like we could talk for another hour and I wouldn't bat an eye.
No. But trust me, we will get the opportunity to, because I'm going to bug you about booking one of those brand calls. So,
Okay,
yeah,
deal.
yes, yes. Thank you so much. It was great having you. I love it. Audience, it was great having you here today. Reach out to Laura. She is wonderful. I mean, I can feel her presence. She's not here with me, but I can feel it. She's a wonderful soul. And take care until next time. And we'll see you next time on Inspired Women Amazing Lives podcast. Bye. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Inspired Women Amazing Lives podcast. Until we meet again, I urge you as an inspired woman to seek out ways to inspire and lead the other women in your circle. Please share this episode with another woman that you would love to inspire or someone who has inspired you. Feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, and remember, always thrive, inspire, and lead.